Very pleasant good evening to the guest speaker, Dr. J. Mohammed Ahmed, scientist from NRSC, staff members of Department of Agronomy, dear scholars. Very pleasant good evening to all. Today, we are going to have the lecture on application of remote sensing in agriculture. So it's a important topic. We are using for different purposes, especially the remote sensing and wide application in all the sectors of our life. It's more so in agriculture also. So in this occasion, I welcome all the people from Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, Coimbatore, and also from scientists from off campus. They are also attending here through online. So our scientist, the guest speaker, Dr. J. Mohammed Ahmed, is presently working in Regional Remote Sensing Center, NRSC, Department of Space in Bangalore. He is the fittest person to deliver the application technologies to agriculture. I met him earlier. He came to visited Coimbatore. This is the fourth time, I hope. So he was the external examiner for the PhD scholar of our department also. So he is having vast experience in developing assessment of drought monitoring at the national level. It consists of five scientist committee. Is one among the five. So such a wonderful man we are having. Then crop acreage assessment. That's ever, but we are assessing the crop different seasons. Different seasons, especially Kharif and Rabi. What is the acreage? Is it not? What is the use of assessing the acreage? By assessing the acreage only, we can able to predict what is the level of production in Kharif crop. What is the acre coverage in taken up sowing? This directly indicate the output. Okay, so I think you might have seen in Hindu paper during the Kharif season, every weekly there is the advancement in sowing of Kharif crop in millets, Rabi, pulses like that they give. So those who are very closely monitoring. Only because of these kind of people working in the acreage coverage. And then the next important thing is production estimation. How they are importing the wheat or exporting the other crop to other the crop which are production produced in high quantity can be exported to the other countries. These are being done based on the estimation of crop production. That is more important. The estimation also be done in several phases. One at the time of flowering, and another at the time of near before harvesting. So the accuracy is near flowering. Our university, our vice chancellor madam also be involved in yield estimation in different crops. Our vice chancellor madam, she used to give the forecast twice. One at the time of before flowering, before harvest, 15 days before harvest. So the accuracy is almost 85 to 90% before harvest. The second phase, good accuracy. So in this way, our speaker is well versed in crop acreage estimation, production estimation in maize, bajra, and groundnut. Then hyperspectral remote sensing is also done good lot of work, and also the carbon fluxes, Medigo variants. So these are the thing he is well experienced. I request all the staff members and students kindly listen to his presentation, because when he come for presentation, he might have referred several journals and books and research articles. So in a gist form, he is going to present. So make use of the time efficiently and try to get clarify all your queries. Don't reserve any queries within your mind. Don't think that it is a simple question whether we can ask or even though it is simple. Kindly exchange whatever you are having in your mind. You exchange or discuss with him freely so that you can get empower your knowledge. It's only a capacity building. So with these few words, I welcome the guest speaker to deliver his lecture.
Is a very broad topic, remote sensing applications in agriculture. So with 1 hour, I'll try to make it more interactive. And here, instead of going in a sequential manner, I'll just show you some of the examples as to how where this remote sensing can be used as a tool. Then with your specializations in various disciplines. At the same time, I'll also tell you a few of the thrust areas where you also can concentrate or work on it, which is the need we are these days. So with this background, so I'll start. And before I start with this three, three or four images that I have put in the first slide, you can make out that they are in different colors. So here in the lower side, you must be aware of some of the basics of remote sensing. So the images are in false color composite. However, on the right hand side, the lengthier image which is there, it is in natural color composite. And you can also see certain features you can see in the downside images here, uh, wherein is more like a plantation. One is seen more clearly, one which is less denser. And so even if it is the same plantation also, because of changes in resolution, they are viewed differently, and they are meant for different purposes also. So if I want to do a study on a larger scale, so I may not have a very high resolution data that is covering the entire region at one time. So then I may have to go for some other resolution and work with. Likewise, if I want to do a farm level study, I need a very high resolution data for its own specific purposes. So just that was one of the basic things I just wanted to convey with these photographs. And the left hand side rectangular image that you are seeing is a hyperspectral image of 4 meter resolution for some part of OT. Here in this slide, I have tried to list out some of the possible applications in agriculture. There may be many more than this. One of the immediate application is identifying crops. So a crop area estimation, and then once I know the area, I also need to know the production. So how do I do that? So that also we can discuss in the short time. Further, for crop faces moisture stress, which leads to large crop losses, and that we in agriculture call it as agriculture drought. Likewise, there are many kinds of droughts. Here, I'll just address agriculture drought, how assessment and monitoring can be done. Further, one of the biggest contributor nowadays to our Indian agriculture is horticulture produce. So, how to map those horticulture crops, and what are all the possible ways wherein you can try to estimate the yield in horticulture crops. So then cropping system analysis, then next comes using these things, crop information via remote sensing, and taking the climate forecast data and analyzing whether that particular crop or cropping system would be sustainable in the changing climate scenarios. So such kind of studies can be carried out on a spatial scale. Further, it has a tremendous, it gives us a So we also have a tremendous advantage here of utilizing the remote sensing data products for water resources monitoring. Then how effectively we can use the rain, the irrigation water. So some of the examples I'll try to highlight it. Then likewise, when there is no crop, how the bare soil data information from remote sensing satellite data products can help you in soil mapping. So what are all the techniques that are coming up, and some case studies, if possible, I'll try to tell you within this 1 hour. And further, nowadays, many new applications are coming up. So one of the applications are use of deep learning and artificial intelligence in pest and disease forecasting or pest and disease identification at the farm level. So what are all the possibilities wherein you all can from pathology or entomology division, so wherein you can try and develop such forecasting models and try to implement it on mobile and share it via server through farmers and further that can be operationalized. And similarly, remote sensing as a tool is effectively being utilized in identifying potential phishing zones. So all such things. So I'll try to address some of them in the. This is one example where I just wanted to show you. See, Kharif season we have cloud cover. So, and you will be aware that during cloud cover period, we will have limitation of using optical data sets, because optical data sets, when cloud is there, you may not be able to know what crop is there, and you will have lot of difficulties when you have less repeativity of optical data sets, because most of the times we try to, as a students, we need some free data sets with which we can use and develop our methodologies. And if we go for data sets like Planetem, they're expensive, and even though they are available on every alternate days interval, but for us in regional studies and also for students to use the datasets, we generally prefer datasets that is relatively free, and softwares that are open source in nature, and at the same time easily doable, understandable and doable. So in that way, when we see we have limitations in optical datasets because of cloud cover in Kharif season. So then the next best alternative is what? So then the next best alternative is microwave datasets. What microwave dataset does? So those bands, they can penetrate through clouds, and you get the information. So microwave dataset works with the basic principle of under identifying the differences in terms of backscatter and dielectric properties of a material. So surface roughness and the dielectric properties of a material determines the backscatter that comes from a surface, which can be sensed through microwave datasets. And nowadays we are getting very good data products of very high resolution, like Sentinel, and our own Indian data products, EOS4 kind of data sets, so are there, which can be utilized in identifying crops. And here what happens is, once you do tillage operation, and once the land surface appears smooth, backscatter is, say suppose here you can see the darker regions, what has happened, they have completed the tillage operations and then puddled this surface, and water is standing. So the backscatter, since the surface is smooth, the backscatter values are greater than 17 dB, something that is shown here in the field, like in 19th August, second date from there. I'm sorry, I do not have pointer. Then likewise, as and when transplanting happens, then what happens? See this smooth surface. Once the microwave wave falls on the smooth surface, and then it gets scattered with the presence of the plant that is transplanted. Of say, suppose after 10 days of transplanting, you have a standing crop, and then the the wave, once it falls on the soil and then gets reflected via or scattered via the standing crop, then you get a double bounce, and that is sensed by the receiver antenna. And likewise, we get the backscatter differences as and when the crop grows, and the temporal changes in the backscatter characteristics of the crop are measured, and through which we estimate, we identify particular crop. And for each of the crop, it will have different backscatter characteristics. And certain times we also should know remote sensing is not the answer for everything. The remote sensing, we can use it as a tool with our subject background. Say for example, I'm an agronomist, so I want to know the crop, so I should know its phenology. And then what happens, then if I have a crop, like for example maize is there, and in the next field if I have bajra, or if I have jowar sown, then they are phenologically similar. So at that time, you it is difficult to identify similar phenologically looking crops, which are grown side by side. At the same time, when I have a temporal data set of same microwave data sets spread across the season, I may get a few satellite data passes wherein the backscatter differences between these two crops are differentiable. At the same time, during flowering or during panicle initiation, something like that, at that time there will be unique backscatter of these two crops. So such kind of characteristics, first we have to characterize these crops, identify their backscatter characteristics or reflectance properties, then go in for identifying the crops using any of the machine learning algorithms which are available. So that is the basic principle for all the crops that we do. And now why I'm showing you the here is, see in green curve you can see, since after the water is standing in the field, you can see the backscatter is very less. It is going up to 19 dB, something like that. And then once transplanting happens, that backscatter starts increasing. So, and it stays maximum somewhere around between 80 to 90 days after transplanting. So when I have only 1 or 2 dates, probably it may that backscatter might intermix with some other crop. But when I have this entire profile, so some 5 or 6 date data sets, and then that backscatter, if I compare with other crops, so these crops will become separable from each other. So in this way, I differentiate, for example, here a rice crop from other crops. So now the question comes, so already rice crop is identifiable. Now what we can do? So there are many crops wherein methodologies have not been developed. So there is lot of scope for students, scientists, professors in contributing here. Like we have so many, like even within the crop, short duration, long duration varieties. Then amongst crops, we have dominant crops are some operational methodologies have come up, but for scattered kharif crops, still operational methodologies have not come up. So there is a scope wherein students and all others can contribute in developing these methodologies. And for one more advantage here is now through Google Earth Engine, you if you have a very good PC with good internet, and so that much is enough. Via Google Earth Engine, you can call these data sets, and in Google Earth Engine cloud platform, you can do all these necessary calculations. So one additional thing what would be required, you will have to have ground truth information, for which for a selected location, you may have to go and collect the GPS points, bring them and incorporate into the uh, software. So by doing so, so without having additional software requirement, you just with small understanding of Google Earth Engine, which you can learn it in uh, a small duration of time, and all online free courses and coursework materials are available, which I'll show in the last slide from where you can fetch them. You can start learning and developing these methodologies. So similarly, sir, like for example, at national scale, when we talk for operational area estimation, so if we have around some 10 crops, but we know that there are more than 25 crops, so there, like right now, we can have 15 crops which are left out to be operationalized, wherein the universities across India, then for their regions, their methodologies can be developed and operationalized. So that is one component. And this is with regard to microwave data. Similarly, during the Rabi season, we do not have much disturbance by a cloud. So optical data is there. So optical data, you can see here in the slides, I have put some 6 optical data sets starting from November to February, where for part of Punjab I have shown, wherein you can see in the November, due to bare soil presence, it is more cyan in color, soil background is seen. And as and when sowing starts, you can see from the southern portion of each of those images, this redness increases. That means the crop starts growing, and it's getting manifested on the image. And in term when I have a false color composite displayed, so vegetation is looking red. So the intensity of redness increases, and during the peak vegetative phase, like January to February, you can see the maximum redness in the image that is displayed here. So then here, what are all the challenges? So you have, say, for example, a state like Punjab. I have mustard. Mustard is grown. Then we have wheat is grown. So likewise, parallelly there, sugarcane also is grown, and such crops. And identifying between these crops. So for which single day data, sometimes during peak vegetative phase, I can estimate using machine learning algorithms with fair degree of accuracy. However, if I have the liberty of having more number of data sets, the accuracy still increases. So that is an advantage of having temporal data sets. Another thing is, say this method of area identification is well known. Then what next? So next part comes is production estimation. How do I estimate the production of these crops? So in the coming slides, I'll just show you some of the hints. So how best we can estimate the production, and there are several techniques. So few of the techniques I'll highlight it. So this is one of the example uh, where I have shown you that we have this is one district called Kalburgi. They here basically it is dominant with tur crop, red gram. Then we have gone to field. So these dots, that are highlighted onto this image are the ground truth points collected by some of our colleagues. And in the right hand side, you can see the crop stages as well as different crops photographs, and also its profile. And you can see when there is a peak, the sigmoidal curve. Yeah, here, fine, 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 sir. See here, at this peak stage, we can see a lot of difference in the spectral reflectance that is there, and maybe at this particular stage, along with this data of acquisition, would help me in identifying the different crops. Basically, the next is this. Once I have used the GT on these temporal data sets, I have classified the image, and the output is shown here. And since what practically working, what I would like to share with you is, if it is a dominant crop, accuracy estimations are relatively better. But when we have competing crops, and if it is not dominant in nature, so the methodologies there needs to be developed as to how best I can use various other machine learning or different kind of algorithms or combination of algorithms with which I can improve the area estimates. So area estimates should always be more than 80% and above, and consistent, especially consistent in nature. So these are some of the areas in area estimation where students and others can contribute. Likewise, when I have for the entire year the temporal data sets, so I can know in Kharif what particular crop is grown, Rabi which particular crop is grown, some of whether it is fallow or still any other in irrigated region some crops are grown or not, and by uh, overlaying them all, I can come out with the cropping pattern, then what kind of crop rotation that is being followed. So all such informations can be estimated, especially on a larger regional scale. So here the requirement is we should have ground truth information statistically significant enough to have a accurate estimates, and that would not be to such an extent as much that is required what is being followed by the state departments. So like for example, if I have say around depending on the diversity of the region. Just as an example, I am telling some 50 ground truths of one particular crop, but such particular ground truth I should have for all other competing crops as well, so that I get proper, accurate, spatially identifiable area for each crop. So in similar way, these are examples here that are shown for even Uttar Pradesh, wherein different crops are being, and what kind of crops that are grown, what is the cropping intensity there, then cropping pattern there, so that have been mapped. So this kind of thing can be done provided we have a sufficient amount of cloud free data sets, cloud free optical data sets. And next, if I move from acreage estimation to production estimation, there are various methods. I am just here in the first slide showing you fossil related slide, which is forecasting agricultural output through space agrometeorology and land-based observations. So here, in the pre-sowing state of forecast, generally we use the econometric models, whereas agrometeorological information and field informations are used in the early season assessment, and mid-season assessment we use all three: remote sensing, field observations, and meteorological observations. Likewise, pre-harvest and revised forecasts. So for this, how it is approached? So you can see here we have multi-date satellite data sets. So wherein we will overlay the ground truth information, then by and then classify the image, we get some acreage, and to that acreage information, uh, for crop yield estimation, either I can go for agromet method, then or I can go for spectroagromet method. Spectroagromet means I also include the spectral reflectance, either directly reflectance bands or the vegetation index is calculated by that alongside the agromet uh, parameters, and related to the crop cutting experiments yield, and come out with a yield estimate. And similarly, there are several other approaches. So for example, I can use a simulation model and relate that simulation model, calibrated simulation model's output to that of the spectral reflectance or the backscatter, and relate that to yield and convert that into a spatial yield. And there are few other methods as well. So you, as you will, as you are very good with agrometeorology, so we also can make use of the light use efficiency models. So some of them call it as semi-physical models, or some of them call as radiation use efficiency models, or something like that. So wherein we can use the PAR information, then convert it into FA and temporal constraints from, say for example, at on field crop suffers from moisture stress, and how that we can incorporate that information can be incorporated by using some of the vegetation indices that are sensitive to water stress, like NDWI or LSWI, something like that. And see, NDVI also is a manifestation of the entire management practices for each of that pixel. If we talk about a pixel, uh, so that particular NDVI will be the representative of all the factors, interactions that are happening in the field. For example, with different management practices that are done, with different sowing dates or something like that, and that is again a constraint. It may be a potential, if it is, if all things are followed properly, it can act as one of the pixels for potential yield, or if it is under stress, it can also act as a constraining factor. So such informations, if I incorporate along with FAPAR and the harvest index and the radiation use efficiency of each particular crop, then I can finally come out with yield, NPP based yield for each crop. So that is relatively easier to do, and it gives better results as compared to that of simulation models, because simulation models initially might require lot of data sets. Unless we have the information ready in a spatial form for like for example soil, we should know different layers of soil information that are there, the fertility information, and so many other factors. Likewise, the genetic coefficients that are required, and the weather parameters, minimum four that are required into the models, and then uh, run that model. But these are relatively directly you can uh, arrive at the yield. So there should be a trade-off initially to come out with yield estimates, unless still sound and better models keep getting developed and for which necessary databases are developed. So two things here. One, developing methodologies wherein we can estimate yield, which can directly get into the system for policymakers as well as insurance related products. Parallelly, we also should keep developing better methodologies which can circumvent the limitations that are present in the existing methodologies, for which both uh, I mean the entire university departments can contribute a lot. So to make this process easier, so we have also developed some of the mobile app information so that taking 2 points into consideration. One is the information that is collected onto the ground that stays onto the server for a longer duration, and at the same time acts as it also has a geofencing kind of a concept. I cannot sit here, open the mobile app and click some point in some location and collect the information. But that app, unless otherwise I go to that particular survey number, stand there, take the photograph, it won't record the observations. So such kind of features have been incorporated and mobile apps have been developed wherein a particular person who has to go and collect information, he goes there, collect all the necessary informations like what is the crop, stage of the crop, then if he's collecting yield, those yield parameters incorporates into the app, and from there directly they along with the geotag photo, it goes and sits into the server, which can be accessed by the related personnel for further analysis and also the policymakers or the higher ups for visualizing that. So in that way, for entire India, all the ground truth data products are collected that through Malanobis National Crop Forecast Center sits in our server, and their proper data record is being maintained. And further, for students can write to the director MNCFC in Ministry of Agriculture for certain districts of their interest for previous years, ask them to provide those ground truth information, where they will provide that information using, because students, for all students it may not be possible to go on real time basis to collect the informations and come. They can take this information, incorporate onto the freely available data sets onto Google Earth Engine or some of the open source softwares that are there, and carry out their necessary research works. So this is one of the example where we in TNAU, as we in ISRO as well as the TNAU scientists here, RSNGS team, we work together in developing a spatial yield model for maize in Perambalur district. So basically what we have done is, we all know that we have a DSAT software simulation model. So that was calibrated here, and we from our side, what we did was we spatialize this model. So we made this, since this model runs on a point scale, we made it to run continuously for each of the grid pixel size of somewhere around right now for 500-meter resolution. So for every 500-meter resolution as a centroid, it takes up the weather data information, it takes up the soil data information. Soil data sets we have at 1:50,000 scale for this region, and weather data sets more than almost around 10 weather stations which are spatially gridded, and that gridded information it extracts automatically, which here again this plugin is on an open source software called QGIS. So one can open this and then incorporate these parameters, and dominant genetic coefficient grown in this a variety grown in this region, so its genetic coefficient was taken and incorporated into the model, and we are now able to execute this model spatially, and now we have plans to execute this on a national scale by incorporating the dominant varietal information and test in the coming year. So this is one of the applications. So likewise, this is just one crop. Likewise, for there are so many other crops wherein we can develop such similar modules, and which are both helpful for policymakers as well as the farmers. So how it is helpful for both, that also I'll explain in the coming slides. So this is just for you to see how the satellite data sets, when they are converted to some index, like a normalized difference vegetation index here, which shows you the greenness which indirectly tells you about the health and growth of crop. You can see from June to November, these data sets are kept at every fortnightly intervals, and with every image, once you move from June here, you can see that the greenness is increasing. So this is how the temporal data sets helps us in taking advantage of the I mean remote sensing, how best we can use them. And since you also can see that this is entire state, so we can have a synoptic view of the entire region, then at a consistent scale and specified time. And this also will be a data record for a long-term database, wherein apart from the current and user needs, we also can use it for climate change related studies. So such kind of information can be derived, and we can work on this. And this is another example, just with one or two slides I'll show you here, uh, as to basically, I worked here, and my starting from my starting days of my career, National Agriculture Drought Assessment and Monitoring System. So basically, what we do here is we incorporate the information extracted from the temporal satellite data sets, then added from alongside the meteorological information like rainfall and its derivatives, then agronomic information. So these things are integrated here, and we do this analysis at every fortnightly intervals, and report is generated on monthly intervals for entire earlier for 14 agricultural dominant states, now for entire India at a 56-meter resolution, wherein we initial stages we identify the districts which have deficit rainfall and such things. In the subsequent slide I'll show you. And then in the later part of the crop growing stages, we declare that whether that the severity of the particular stress like drought, whether it is moderately severe, then very severe, all those things. And this once analyzed, it is reports are disseminated to respective states uh, and the ministries. So now uh, Ministry of Agriculture has made it mandatory to incorporate remote sensing database products in for drought declaration. So they have further modified the manual, and they say that now we can at the initial stages rainfall based triggers are there, and the second stage, which is trigger 2, wherein we both use remote sensing based indices, then crop situation, soil moisture, and hydrological conditions. So these things are considered for drought declaration. So how they are considered in the slides I have shown you here. Due to paucity of time, I'll just tell you a little faster. You can go through the slides in the later stages. So this is just to tell you how drought assessment is done here. Then further, due to unseasonal rains or hailstorms or due to floods, crop gets damaged. So here, for a larger area with very quick assessment, this is one, I think, only tool that is available with which we can do quick assessment of damage assessment. Uh, Say for example, these summer times we have a lot of hailstorm that come, and many standing crops get damaged. So very fast we can do the damage assessment. So now there are various means again if we do not have satellite data. So we have aircraft borne sensors, wherein we can fly to those regions, then take the data, acquire the data products, process it, and within a very short span of time analyze the results. And likewise, if it is a smaller region, and if we it's a very economically important crop and we need to do plot by plot as damage assessment, then drone based cameras mounted can be very effectively used. This is some of the examples where overlaying the cadastral maps, we could find out for each of the farmer their affected areas. In similar way, we can also give advisories to farmers, so, for their requirements. Then likewise here. this is one example wherein on a every yearly basis for entire India. Here just I have shown you an example for Tamil Nadu. The crop area information. Exactly agriculture area information I should say. No, it is not crop specific, but kharif crop, how much area it is there, rabi crop, then likewise a double cropping where it is followed. So all those things are mapped in our center at National Remote Sensing Center, and all these are available as a WMS layer for you to work. You can directly access it via QGIS. There one option is their plugins via WMS service. You can access this as a background and do further analysis. So remote sensing and GIS again has tremendous potential. Here what I have shown you is once we have crop map, it opens up lot of avenues for us to do analysis. So one of the example that I have shown you here is then I can know based overlaying this crop information on the soil, on the soil information. I can know the areas that are highly suitable for cultivating each crop. So wherein we can through our extension system and then sensitize the farmers as to which particular crop if they grow in these regions, they it will be more economical beneficial to them. Similarly, there are kharif rice fallows, which if can be utilized for growing other crops, it can reduce some of the prices. Like for example, if I can use it to grow for some pulses, so area under pulses can increase. So similarly, here also in Tamil Nadu, if I have certain, if I can work, if or not I, if we can work on in identifying regions wherein we can cultivate oilseed crops also. So that will give very good income to farmers. At the same time, it will have a positive effect in reducing the prices that are soaring up these days. So such kind of analysis can be carried out on a every year to year basis, so that such if such information is automated and timely it goes to the agriculture department, so they will be in a better position to mobilize the things that are required to take up these crops. And other than this, we also have remote sensing potential in water resources. And even, yeah, as you know, ET is heart of agriculture. So estimating it accurately, timely is very essential. Here, remote sensing can help us in estimating the actual evapotranspiration at a larger scale. So I can estimate now remote sensing if I am using Landsat kind of data sets, which is at 30-meter resolution. On 30-meter resolution scale, the actual evapotranspiration. If for entire India, what we are doing under National Hydrology Project at 750-meter resolution, we are estimating the evapotranspiration. That also you can download it and use it for your applications. It is available from 2019 onwards. It's simple registration process is required, and you can Google NRSC NHP. You'll get the web page, and from there you can access these data products. So to validate these or to calibrate these data sets, we have set up eddy covariance flux towers. In my group, we ourselves have set up around 10 eddy covariance flux towers, and likewise in our entire analysis setup, we have almost around 20 22, I think, eddy covariance flux towers spread across the agro ecosystems of India. And with these data sets, you can get almost all the data, micrometeorological data that are required. So that we are utilizing it for calibrating our models. At the same time, for these different agro ecosystems, what is the carbon sequestration potential, then how these systems are acting as carbon source or sinks to the system, whether these crops are sourced to carbon source or carbon sinks. So how whether carbon neutrality or carbon budgeting can happen, all these things we are working from I think for few towers from more than 10 years, and from other towers which have been recently established from almost 2 years. This information also, especially on weather data sets. They are displayed onto a web page that also can be accessed from yourself. And for Tindivanam site where our ORS is there, so there we have set up one flux tower. And uh, here for oilseed research, oilseed crops, we are working on the covariance related studies. And next part comes is horticulture. So as you know that there are several schemes in horticulture, and horticulture produce is also contributing tremendously to our GDP. Then how best to identify these crops? So once you know these where these crops are there, what is their spatial extent, then further refinements can also be done to know their which of the farms are more productive in nature, this like age groups, and which are the newly grown or newly sown crops. So based on which several management practices and policy decisions can be taken up. And we have developed methodologies of identifying major horticulture crops. And now the next stage, what can be done is we are now adopting then deep learning based techniques in automating identifying these crops across India. So that is what we are working, and several other students can also think about it and contribute. Uh, but here, one major component that is not done is production estimation in horticulture crops. So there's also a good thought can be made. Like for example, I can tell you, say suppose this is a tree. So I have fruits that are there which can be visually seen. So if I can take photographs of these trees with some constant distance and develop an algorithm in identifying the number of fruits and then relate that fruit to the average fruit size and fruit weight. So then I can know once I know the plant population of that particular region, and if I take statistically significant number of photos and automate them, I can arrive at the production. So such kind of it's just an example, and many new things can be thought about. So such things students can think and work on it. So these are some of the, in remote sensing we call spectral signatures. Each crop, has unique reflectance pattern, both temporally as well as on a single date. So how it is manifested on crop at different months has been shown here. I'm sorry, some of crops have not been displayed properly here. Huh. This is just an example here I was showing under Chaman project, which is called Coordinated Program on Horticulture Assessment and Management using Geoinformatics under Ministry of Agriculture. So for mango, banana, citrus, the major districts that are covered are mapped by us, and now it is available. You can see them and call them as a WMS layer from Bhuvan website of our NRSE, bhuvan.nrsc.gov.in. From there, you can visualize them, and at the same time, if you want prints, you can take prints as PDF. And if you want to call it as a WMS layer, you can call that as a WMS layer, and further work on as further analysis by yourself in GIS atmosphere. Then this is an example with just to tell you how we can use this DL or AI based methods in identifying pest or disease. As I was earlier telling you, if I have some, say suppose grape crop, downy mildew is there. So that disease, it's at different stages. So if I can take photographs of, but here one point to be considered is I need to have hundreds and thousands of photographs for DL based methods. But once and in one go we cannot do that, but a couple of years if we can cover various farms and collect these photos for a disease with various stages and tag all those things, all those photos, then there lies a tremendous potential in automating this. Say suppose if I develop a module wherein a farmer goes to his field, takes a picture, and the software interacts with the server and tells him what is that particular disease and it is at what stage. So if he knows this information timely, and the same module can further tell him which particular insecticide or pesticide he has to apply at what level. So by doing so, he can timely uh, do the control measures. So that would be a big boost both for academics, the department officials, as well as farmers. So which will help in improving the, saving his crop. So this is one of the examples of some of the photos I took it from Palnivelan sir on Gaja cyclone, because I just wanted to show you on Tamil Nadu region only. You can, the devastating effect that it had, and impact on the crops. So when the drone was flown, so this, when we want to do for a smaller scale, and if we have large number of drones, no issues. But drones, if I have limited number of drones, and want to do plot by plot and at very high resolution scale, count the number of trees, count the number of uh, houses or any structure that is damaged by these cyclones. Drones are one very effective tool. At the same time, these drones, cannot be taken in areas where we have high winds. Their aerial, aircrafts would help, but in relatively stable winds in such regions, we can take them and have very good quality information product coming out. And this nowadays, the softwares to process the drone images are very good, and we get timely outputs of these images, and can be analyzed, and quick damage assessment and relief measures can be taken up. You can see before the disaster and after disaster. So likewise, for a larger region, uh, the best alternative is satellite data. So here, this is part of nearby Mysore district of Karnataka. So where we had a very high amount of rainfall. Almost last year, we received almost double the annual rainfall that was there. And during the peak vegetative growth of rice crop, very large area was inundated with floods, and large scale damage happened. And that inundation also was for very large amount of time. So these two words you please remember: the duration of inundation, and differentiating between inundation and flash floods. So why I'm telling you is, you also have a research question here that you can address. One is, for which particular crop the duration of this inundation would impact on yield. So for if it is rice, how much days inundation should be there, and at what stage of rice crop it is there, what amount of loss can happen. So such there, none of the simulation models, have this kind of information inbuilt. So if such kind of methods can quantitatively can be developed, so that would help in a long way in accurately assessing the damage that has happened. So likewise, we know that if for more than 3 days, if water is standing in red gram, so it starts crop to start assess. Impact will be seen there. To what extent? So that quantification has not happened. Mostly it is qualitative in nature. So such places for different crops, if these methodologies can be developed, so that would be very helpful for quantifying the damage assessment. So likewise, early season drought, mid season drought, late season drought for different crops, if it comes. So to what extent, a quantifiable extent, if a protocol is developed for different crops, that again would benefit in damage assessment. So that was the reason for me to put these slides. So once I have more than one band, I can see it in colors, and you can see the blue areas. These are all the flooded areas, wherein earlier it was one of the very good paddy growing regions, and which got affected this year. So this is another example. Just I wanted to show you. Earlier I told you about the apps that are there, and you see once for you can see the entire India ground truth information that once we overlay for a crop, how for entire India it shows. So this kind of repository also is there. One is it acts as a repository, then accurate information stays there, and at the same time, students or researchers can take these data sets and do their further analysis if required, writing to MNCFC. And this is another example. Unlike crops for soil, uh, nutrient assessment, or mapping soils is a different subject. We should know the mobility of nutrients. If I want to know the interval between one point to another point, what is the distance between one point to another point for soil mapping or nutrient mapping. So such literatures are there wherein we can study them and do the nutrient mapping or fertility mapping, and at the same time we can directly see based on the tonal, textural, and associated information that lies in the uh, bare soil regions time acquired data set. I can use that in improving the soil map and improve nowadays for entire India. Then soil mapping compilation is happening at 1 is to 50,000 scale. Further, for precision agriculture, still better scale information is required. So wherein here this geospatial information would be a very good tool which can assist in improved mapping activities. So these are some of the further, if some 3 4 slides. Here I just wanted to show you how these are being used in various level of planning. So at the same time, we also are educating the educational institutes and others to contribute in doing geotagging information. So, for example, like 38 academic institutes in 9 states then have helped us in covering more than 8,000 panchayats and helped us in doing geotag information. So that is shown here in and likewise, synergistic use of geospatial and location-based services in governance is described here. Due to lack of time, I'll just run through this. Similarly, you have seen the below URL Bhuvan app, Bhuvan app 1.nrsc.gov.in JSA Jal Shakti portal. So if you go here, you can also see so various information. So several schemes have come, and wherein watershed development activities have happened, and watershed related structures that have been developed, then micro watershed boundary delineation, all those things. So all those informations are present here in this website. Say for example, you can see here you have the recharge structures, then so water conservations that have structures related that have happened. So this is some part of Tamil Nadu I have shown here. District is Dharmapuri district. So once you zoom and see this, you can have information on many existing structures. And the advantage, what happens is, if this is to a state department, it is open access, ma'am. So if you want to, and if in case if you are unable to access, you kindly write to us. We will send you the information. Then here what happens is, if a policy maker wants to again go for some water harvesting structures, so if this kind of information is there, if he is going for the similar place, so he'll be redoing it. So such kind of things, duplicacy can be avoided by having such information already present. And then jumping to altogether new topic. So we in remote sensing, there are certain other several satellites nowadays coming up. So one of the satellite called Somi uh, is there, sorry, Sentinel 5P. Sentinel 5P has the information on air pollution monitoring. So, like for example, you have these are basically at a larger coarser scale, but still they are very sensitive and effective, and you can use them for your studies. Say, for example, you have information on methane, you have information on carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide. So such things. Uh, on a larger scale, you can study its influences. So we have noticed, for example, myself in Baddipur region, when forest fire was there, so there was drastic increase in some of these gases, and that could be easily seen. So such, and these data sets are available on a daily time step interval. So and you can monitor them. So we had conducted such studies pre-COVID and post-COVID times, and during COVID times, what are all the changes? Significant changes were observed. And likewise, we also have other data sets. These are some of the examples here. select nitrous oxide concentration shown here between 1 month period mean for various wherever industrialization is happening or industries or urban areas are there, their emissions are very clearly seen, and how they spread and all, where persons from respective divisions who on atmosphere sciences now, so they can study on this. And then before if I have sir, some 5 to 10 minutes time, so I'll just brief them on very brief on hyperspectral. So what are all the avenues that are there wherein they can work, and see all this time we were talking about optical data sets and microwave data sets, and for evapotranspiration thermal data sets also come. So there is almost all one more domain of a data set available called hyperspectral data sets. So unlike the optical data sets which are broadband, which have broadband and very few number of bands at the electromagnetic spectrum, here we have contiguous bands in the entire electromagnetic spectrum of 400 to 2500 nanometers, and at very short wavelength interval. So this helps us in getting the diagnostic curves or diagnostic identifying the diagnostic features of a particular crop or particular object of our interest. For example, here you can see in the right hand side multispectral versus hyperspectral data, that spectral reflectance curve that I have shown. In the broadband, you have, say, suppose if I am using Landsat data, I may have around 6 to 7 bands. Then you can see it is centered at significant regions, but a broadband only one value you will get on reflectance. But in the same place, if I have more than 20-30 bands, then for each of the variety or for each of the crop, I may get diagnostic I mean reflectance patterns specific to that particular feature of interest. So if there is reduction in moisture, so that can be captured. If there is reduction in nitrogen content of leaf, so that I can identify. So how that happens in this coming graphs I'll show you. So in this slide, what I just wanted to tell you is, so the spectral bands which are separate here, in the hyperspectral bands there won't be any gaps, and we have instead of wide bandwidth we have a narrow bandwidth, so that we'll have contiguous narrow bands, and which ultimately gives us complete representation of the spectral signature. So it see higher number of bands, higher number of data also comes with a disadvantage of larger image size, so wherein we need larger computational things. And one more good news is, nowadays some of the very good quality free data sets are available here, so that also I'll tell. Principles I'll skip. This again just shows you the reflectance curve from healthy vegetation. You know what is happening here? Because of the presence of intercellular, I mean canopy architecture, and the moisture content in the leaves or plants. So you have a very high reflectance in the near infrared region. And so in the red region, what is happening? Plants are absorbing the radiation. So you find a dip here, here in this region, and likewise because of presence of chlorophyll. So here large reflectance is there here. Sorry, in this portion between 0.55 to 6, and likewise just these are just an example, but if I see between reflectance curve between a wet soil and dry soil, you can see large gap is there. So higher the dryness, higher is the reflectance there. But here in the vegetation, I'll come in the subsequent slides. You can see here the reflectance pattern between a mulberry plant as well as soil, altogether different. So you can appreciate the presence of moisture, chlorophyll, all those things, how reflectance between soil and vegetation is different. And there are, these are ground-based, we have ground-based sensors. And what generally happens is it comes with an instrument which is almost around 10 to 12 kg, almost around 10 kgs. And you also have optical fiber which you have to carry and show it to crops. So these are some of the innovations that are made done by the scientists themselves, so that they can it would become easier for them to travel across and collect the informations. Yes. So this graph tells you that in the we have chlorophyll absorption bands in blue and red region. Then in the green region, chlorophyll reflectance is more. And because of these are the characteristics because of the leaf pigments that are there. And however, the cell structure and the canopy architecture plays a role in the near infrared region. Here, you can see higher reflectance is there. And then we have some of the water absorption bands. And also the leaf biochemical properties, influences the reflectance pattern in from almost around 1 nanometer to 2.5, 2500 nanometer. It's not 1 nanometer. On each, so this is again reflectance properties for grass. A typical standard textbook reflectance curves I have shown you here, and for a red soil. Then this particular reflectance why I have shown you here is unlike crops, soil or minerals, so they have you have seen earlier, so larger reflectance, but they have dips, that what we call absorption features at specified nanometer intervals because of the mineralogy of the particular either soil or minerals as such or rocks. So to identify them like unique, so these are called signatures which are unique to these particular minerals. So these standard libraries are there, and when we go and have the spectra measured of these rocks or minerals or soils, and when we plot against them, and if they match, so it is very easy for us to identify the mineralogy of the particular materials. So likewise we have GSI and some of our geoscientists working on identifying the mineral deposits, as well as petroleum deposits, and it is very efficient and a very effective method in identifying these kind of structures. So with all the research done, few of the wavelengths they have identified wherein we can observe some of the minerals like 0. 0.4 to 1.4. We have iron bearing minerals, carbonates and sulfates. So likewise between 0.43 to 0.65 we have chlorophyll A and B pigments that can be identifiable, and between 2 and 2.4 where we can identify nitrogen and certain other protein structures. So furthermore on this, if anything required, you can write to me. I can share all the literatures that are there which you can work. And alongside this, we also the spectral resolution also is important. So certain minerals or certain objects can be identified with a broadband, and a certain with the bandwidth, even if it is broad, we can easily identify them. But a certain other between varietal kind of identification, we need narrow bandwidth. So those things are highlighted here. And some of the applications I just was typing then here in agriculture, like we can go for crop stress detection very effectively, then go for differentiation. So we have identified various varieties within a crop using the ground-based hyperspectral measurements. So likewise, soil mineralogy, soil nutrient content, and more than soil nutrient, crop-based leaf nutrient content, especially for taking of spraying of perennial crops. है ना? So this horticulture crops, this would be very effective method. And here I have shown you the hyperspectral data that how for for various crop studies this can be taken. So field-based crop discrimination can happen. Then orchard crop identification. Then radar dynamics, especially it has a role to play with changes in the nitrogen content, and there would be shift in the reflectance properties in the here in this particular region. So it will shift from NAR towards blue, so that we call blue shift. So that it plays a very effective role in identifying the stress as well as the changes in nitrogen content. So again, which can be related to crop condition, crop disease detection also can happen. So here we have some of the spectra that are shown for healthy and diseased crop. You can see here at a specified wavelength, the difference because if we have entire spectra one overlaid one above the other, you cannot appreciate that. So but once we statistically or mathematically evaluate this, you can see this very small narrow wavelength, but it has larger differences in the reflectance properties which detects a particular disease. This so likewise we have identified crops. This we have taken, I myself have done it for around 19 crops in University of Agriculture Sciences, GKVK, Bangalore. So could identify this spectra of different crops. And once we analyzed, we could identify unique bands that are unique in identifying these particular crops like castor, groundnut, red gram. Earlier, I show some other crops. So the one about healthy and stress that I was telling in the the shift that is happening here, the blue shift that I was talking about is shown here. And this just I just wanted to show you. So clearly earlier you saw in the previous slides easy spectras. So now when I have a satellite data, if I unknowingly just draw a spectra, so you can see in the downside so many spectras are there. So here the proper ground truth is required. I go to the particular plot, identify what all the triads that are there, come overlay on the image, and then when I draw spectra and analyze it accordingly, say example I use stepwise discriminant analysis to identify certain bands, then in a very effective way I can identify those particular features, and then I can extrapolate it to the entire image. So that is just I wanted to convey by showing this clumsy image here, and between dry and green leaf. So the changes in this spectra that happens. This is how we can use the information, and uh, some of this is one of from one of my colleague. I have taken this slide so wherein they have used to map various forestries species that are there. So this is part of UTI and using earlier we had this data, now it is not there. Now Prisma, it is overtaken by Prisma data. This is also Hyperion data set. So likewise we can use for surface area from hyperspectral to the applications in water resources. If we see then surface water mapping, then water spread area, then the volume of area for water that is stored, then if any sedimentation has happened, then how much of sedimentation has happened can be detected. So likewise various examples are there, and if I have very high resolution data set, so wherein irrigation infrastructure is being developed, so I can know to what extent the irrigation infrastructure it is developed, whether the development activities are complete or not, and if it is a command area, how much of area is irrigated. You can see among the different dates, so there is change from greenness of an image towards blue, so which is indicating that irrigation supply has extended in that entire command and the water is being irrigated. So likewise, if I have temporal data sets of this is of one Hirakud, I think, command area. So you can see from top December region up to March. So the progression of the crop sowing as well as its condition can be monitored. And this I just wanted to show you, we can differentiate between road and canal and how much of work that has happened in the subsequent slides. Here you can see you have a canal network, but in between there is a gap. So such kind of pending works that are there can be identified and ask them to complete, because if without this we cannot irrigate to the entire region, or if any damage kind of thing has happened, we can identify them and ask them to go for repairs and such things. And friends, uh, hundreds of hours of lectures, video lecture data is available from one of our centers called Indian Institute of Remote Sensing located at Dehradun. And you also can register there and participate in online lectures that are delivered. At the same time, you also have the YouTube lectures. There are hundreds of hours in available. So for any topic, starting from basics of remote sensing till the advanced applications, how you can do in various fields, both in agriculture and non-agriculture fields, you can make use of this. At the same time, for data access, there are two portals. One is nrsc.gov.in. Within that, Bhuvan, Bhuvan, and another portal called Vedas, VDAS, vedas.sac.gov.in. So in these two websites, you'll get a lot of free data sets as well as open source softwares that are available, which you can download and utilize them for your uh, both research as well as educational activities. Thank you. Thanks for your.
Very useful lecture, sir. So almost we are doing this in our students' trial also to some extent, but we elaborately given all those things, not only for crop acreage and crop production and estimation of yield, and also the drought monitoring, how we are doing. Many fundamental as well as advanced thing you have projected here. So my doubt is, imagine for groundnut. Groundnut is you say that the image can show that healthy plant or stressed plant you can monitor, isn't it?
Right.
So at the time of harvesting maturity, the groundnut wears unhealthy appearance. How can we distinguish between a healthy plant and also the normal plant?
Right. So here, temporal data, sir. See, at the towards the end senescence of the when we have a temporal data, so you can know the profile of a crop. So after its peak vegetative grades, it's goes towards senescence, and that indicates senescence. And for stress, we can also add another important factor. Groundnut is a hardy crop, but at the same time, the rainfall information, if any, is there at that time. If it is in the vegetative phase of flowering, or I mean at the peak growth stage, but post reproductive phase, when it is at senescence, obviously it intermixes with that of stress. But because of the temporal data monitoring, you can differentiate between the senescence phase as well as the stress crop. And in groundnut, especially when we talk the identification of groundnuts, sir, here it can be done in areas where you have a complete canopy cover. So in certain areas like Karnataka and Andhra, where up to September, if the crop is grown in June, up to September, almost even up to September, only 80% of the soil background is covered. Rest is exposed. Under such conditions, it becomes very difficult in identification. But in areas where it is irrigated, or if in complete canopy closure is there, it is are detectable both in we have seen both in Gujarat region as well as Tamil Nadu region, where it is grown, where healthy crop I mean canopy cover is there, it is identifiable with a good degree of accuracy.
Excellent, sir. Yeah. We are also facing that white spacer crop. It's very difficult, it seems. Not only here, groundnut. I have seen one of the crop in cotton. The land coverage during the initial stage will be very less crop
Yes,
coverage.
yes.
That shows that based on the reflectance data, it shows that acreage coverage will be less, it seems.
Yes, sir. Here we also have advantage of microwave data. Microwave data has double bounce effect. So there we can utilize microwave data. And nowadays there is also one more research that is going on in uh, using both optical and microwave data together. So wherein the optical data, good quality information can be taken up. At the same time, the backscatter characteristics of from the microwave data set can be taken up, fuse them together and improve upon the classification accuracy. So such kind of approaches would help in detecting the crop, because C-band data, any feature above 5 centimeter dimension can be detectable, and their microwave data would be useful. But same C-band data with high biomass saturates, and their optical data comes into play, and with indices that are sensitive to high biomass can be used, and uh, we can detect those such crops.
Okay. So the another thing, yellowing of leaves in maize crop may be due to several reasons. Yellowing.
Right.
One is due to nutritional disorder.
Right.
Another one is due to pest incidents.
Right.
Can we distinguish in the whether it is due to nutritional disorder or the effect of pest or disease?
Sir, at farm scale, research level scale, it's doable, but field scale, with the coarser hyperspectral data sets available, it's not
Yes.
possible. So unless otherwise some better techniques are identified. Say for example at a farm scale, we identify this particular band and band combinations are consistent in identifying, because initial stages, it is just the reduction in leaf moisture. Later the chlorophyll related issues comes. So in the initial stages it is very difficult, and later if it is due to if it is not due to stress, if it is due to disease, it would be in concentrated patches, and if we have very high resolution data only we can make out.
Okay.
But if it is with coarse resolution data, it's difficult, sir.
Okay. So these are the three questions I used to have in my mind for a long time to discuss with the expert. I think I'm getting clear. Thank you.
Thank you,
So
sir.
I will give chance to other people to discuss. Then again I'll come to you. I got some more questions.
By using back scattering value or spectral data, one who can easily identify which crop is dominating in a particular season, whether it may be Kharif or Rabi. My question is that among the particular crop, which variety or hybrid is dominating in a particular season, so that we can sensitize the farmers by giving forewarning, particularly during epidemic period.
Then varietal level identification provided if they are grown in dominant regions with different of- I mean say suppose if I talk about rice, basmati and non-basmati. Basmati is long duration crop and other crop is a shorter duration crop. If and they are grown in larger regions. So if such kind of characteristics are there, it can be detected with optical cloud-free high-resolution satellite data. But if it is grown in very small patches, then their accuracy in detection is again difficult, sir. So these are here we have some challenges, so we have to address them. And backscatter, sir, backscatter, it's a property of a dielectric property as well as surface roughness. So if a farmer grows a crop a little early, so then the surface roughness decreases and the backscatter starts increasing. And such kind of information, ground truth information I should have. So it is early zone, late zone. So then if I overlay them onto the satellite image, I can detect within the same crop early and late zone kind of things. Or else again, if I don't have such information, then I have to generalize.
Sir, another thing for the benefit of the students, those who are working in weed research, the weed mapping we want to do it for region wise.
Okay.
So one thing in the cultivated land and also the garden land means uncultivated land and also the water bodies.
Right, sir.
So in our wheat project, we need to know approximately we have got 43,000 tanks in Tamil Nadu. So in 43,000 is occupied by different kinds of
Yes.
weeds, mostly of your
Right, sir.
floating weeds. So in the floating weeds, there are different types in different regions. So we like to map the water bodies. Some of the water bodies are very clear. Some of the water bodies are fully occupied by this
Infested by
water
wheat.
hyacinth.
Right.
So we want to know what is the percentage of occupation of the occupied by the weed species and also the species size. Is there any work from your nursery?
So here two things I'll tell. At research plot wise, what you can do is you can take a spectroradiometer, or if you have a spectral imager, ground based, you can develop the spectral signatures for the entire phenophases of those weeds, and that can act as a spectral library for the existing weeds in agriculture regions, or any invasive species that have weed species that have come up either in agricultural regions or forest or water bodies. So that is one component. Another component is when once you have these signatures that are properly built, and you can use this as a reference and use our Prisma data that is available for free for those regions. And if it is not there also, you can just register for it. Is just a small process of registration. Register and ask them for acquisition for that particular area. They shall acquire and mail it to you. And that data sets can be used in softwares like NV, or our own ISRO has one QGIS plugin called Avyas, AVYHAS. So that can be added to QGIS, and you can do the hyperspectral analysis for Prisma data and identify the weed species.
At present, is there anybody working on that weed mapping in water bodies in your institute?
Weed
I
mapping
met the
as a
NRC director day before yesterday
right, sir, at OT he had
at
come.
OT,
Yeah,
both your deputy director and also the director,
right, right.
Prakash has come. Yeah.
Right, sir. So, weed mapping as such, at the 3 years back, I myself had worked on a research plot. One Dr. Sanjay MT is there in Bangalore campus, university campus. They have those uh, plots for. They have cultivated weeds and they keep those research plots now for their studies. There we had taken some spectra. Then at the same time, a few of my colleagues are now working on the water quality. As such, weed they are not studying on water quality in some of the major lakes. They are working. Maybe we can discuss with them.
Okay.
But as such, it is simple, sir. One we should have the spectra for that particular crop identified either on your research farm or even at the lake itself, and then utilize it in a machine learning algorithm of these open source softwares that are there and evaluate. Here in our own RSGS division, now they have softwares like NV or ADAS or ArcGIS, wherein you can incorporate this Prisma data and do the analysis, wherein you can identify this weed as well as weed species in the lakes.
I request some of the scientists and also the research scholar can take this project. This will be useful work. Then another thing, when you take the water bodies of Tamil Nadu, nearly 43,000 tanks are there. We want to monitor during summer as well as Kharif and Rabi. We want to know the spread of water bodies, water coverage, and also not only the spread, and also the quantity of water stored in at least major tank. Then after that, as I said, coverage, quantity of water, and also the siltation. So anybody does this work, that will be great.
So water spread area information that is available in our website itself.
Spread
The
area is
spread
good.
area can be taken. Then next comes the
Volume.
volume. So volume also depends on the dimensions you should know. So wherein one recently they are working, two persons are working in our NRSC. One they are utilizing the sounders to know the depth of the depth information, and similar such kind of studies can take up or operationally can be used. At the same time, when there is no water, they are calculating the DM and then utilizing it in a alternate way to know the volume of water that is stored. So these are some of the approaches. But to make a quick assessment, sir, on such a large amount of water bodies, what I suggest you is we can purchase some of these sounders, that are automated sounders, so that traverse across the water body and collects for every defined interval, collects the depth information, and that can be taken and to the area of water spread that is there. Volume can be calculated on a near real time basis, which more effectively, because we cannot wait for that water to dry up and then do other activities now. So such to save time and to regularly monitor this kind of activities can be done. And for silt related, so because silt already siltation that has happened, you will know by the volume that is there and the initial volume when the tank was built. By that you can calculate the silt that is deposited. And for the during runoff, now what is happening, the if siltation is happening, then through some of the water balance models, one I suggest is at if if you write it to, sorry, if you write it to water resources division in NRSC, one online tool has come up called humid under National Hydrology Project. So they will give you access for at humid. So they will enable access for you to work at micro watershed level. So you need not have any software. It is just an online web browser tool. Some of the inputs you have to incorporate. At the background, SWAT model runs and gives you all the necessary outputs. So that I think could be one effective method wherein certain of the requirements can be. This is the map for 20th February 2023 for entire India. So if I click for any particular region here,
You take Kerala or Tamil Nadu.
any region, sir, here's any one point within that particular state.
Tamil Nadu, where the 3.8 mm.
So since this is little coarser in nature, the values would you might get a little less, but still this is very good at this, and this has been validated, and you are getting the evapotranspiration on for every day. Say for example, I go here. This evapotranspiration of 3.876 millimeter per day
Exactly.
is what is happening.
So this for our area. I'm telling for 1 hectare, it's a 5 mm.
Right.
It's good near our value. Near
So
observed
likewise, for entire region, it is calculating for entire nation, and this data upon registration can be easily downloaded, freely downloaded, and then you can overlay the boundaries of your either watershed or district or basin or sub-basin, and know how much amount of evapotranspiration is happening in the entire cropping season. And
So this is the
this is the actual
open
evapotranspiration.
source.
This is openly available, sir.
Fantastic, fantastic. Please, please make a note of the website and see to that. And then another important things to be clarified is if you take any point, then the data codes good for what is the radius of this?
Sir, here for display right now, it is at 5 kilometer grid.
Ah.
So now the data that would be updated, or once you are downloading, it would be at 750-meter grid. So 750 meter by 750 meter, once you convert into hectares, so many hectare area, it
So
would
by
be
data
for
is
that
the-
particular
okay.
so many hectares. So just multiply that amount of hectares with this amount of water being water
Right,
being lost.
right.
So likewise, we are also working on the water productivity.
Yes.
So for with different irrigation practices that is happening. So how much is the water productivity for crops in a pilot scale for 10 different agro ecosystems we have taken up now. So that once that we establish them, and then we would like to extrapolate it for the larger region. So that is what we are doing right now, sir.
Fantastic, sir, fantastic. Then another question is, will it hold good for the whole day or the particular time? The value will be keep on changing. Morning will be
Yes,
one
yes, yes.
value.
So this is
Peak,
finally the final output that is provided to you is for one
Yesterday.
day.
Yesterday.
Daily information.
Okay.
So it is not for today. We are keeping lag of 2 to 3 days. See, the latest date it
20th,
is
20th.
on 20th February.
20th, I
So
thought.
3 day lag is there. Because data has to come, we have to process, do the quality check, and then once it is quality check is done, and it goes on to the
Right.
web page. So that 2 to 3 days lag period is there.
So similarly, you do for carbon flex also.
On carbon fluxes we are doing. I'll just show you here only flex dashboard. Right now, what I am associated that only I am showing you here. So these are some of the 10 sites where we have for different agro ecosystems. We have set up the flux towers,
Yeah.
wherein we are monitoring both evaporative fluxes as well as carbon fluxes, and we are trying to study the carbon related as well as evaporative fluxes that are happening and their interactions, all those things. So with TNAU, we have set up at Tindivanam.
And,
See here, ORS Tindivanam, based on the internet speed, it takes time. You can know the rainfall, wind speed, all those things. This is updated every 5 minute interval. And the one that is shown here in the green box table, so that is for previous day. Previous day's record on a daily time step. And the one that is displayed here onto the tower, so that is for that is updated every 5 minute interval. So this is for visualization that we have kept it for public visualization, and
this is also open.
this is also open source.
Okay, thank you.
You can see the date and time, sir. Right. Sir.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying my doubt. Please, any queries?
So if there are no queries, we thank Dr. Mohammed Ahmed, sir, scientist from NRSE Bangalore, for his excellent eye-opener lecture. And he has enlightened about the applications of remote sensing in agriculture. Many of us will be new to the subject, so we know what are the avenues open in remote sensing with respect to agriculture. We can also think about some of the projects for your upcoming career. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you for giving this wonderful lecture. Thank